are going to talk about the third bucket, which is capital improvement planning. And this really focuses in on working with the municipalities across the state. And what we're gonna do is do 16 capital improvement plans in close partnership with those communities. And ISG is going to lead that effort. And so that's the topic of today's webinar. So what we would like to do then is I'm going to turn this over to the ISG team, and they're going to lead us through a few slides, and then I'll be on deck to come back and back cleanup.
That sounds perfect.
All right. So
I'll kind of kick it off here. So Joe kind of already introduced me, but I'm Justin Heim, a civil engineer with ISG, and I will be working through this progress with all these communities. And with me today, I got Danielle and Tiara. So if you two want to do quick introductions before we get started here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Danielle Probst. I'm a planner with ISG and will be helping with the capital improvement planning process for the 16 selected communities.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tiara Marcus. I'm the project manager at ISG, and my responsibility will be internal and external coordination to make sure we're achieving all of our milestones through each of these phases of the project. And here to support both the teams and all of the different municipalities as we go through the journey. Good to be here.
I might just jump in one more time.
Go for it.
Thanks, Danielle and Tiara. So I want to make sure I set the stage right here for ISG. When we applied and got this grant, this infrastructure planning grant, we knew at the get-go that we did not have enough capacity at GOED to actually do all of this work. And we didn't have the expertise necessarily either. And so we put out a request for proposal to any firms that would want to do this type of work. And we were very excited to select ISG to do a bunch of this work for, basically for us. And so that's kind of the relationship between GOED and ISG. They put a proposal together. We liked their proposal the best. And so here they are, and we've asked them to do a bunch of this work. And we're very excited that it's a firm that has a presence in South Dakota. We know a bunch of their folks. They're really great. I can't say enough good things about them. So with that, now I will really be quiet.
Well, thank you for that, Joe. And we're really excited to do this too. I mean, just to see the impact that we can make on all these communities, it's going to be significant. I'll let Danielle start for ISG here and take away on capital improvement planning.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll kick it off just by setting the stage, kind of what is a capital improvement plan? So a capital improvement plan coordinates community planning, budgeting, and it's a tool that we use to coordinate the identification, timing, and then the financing of capital improvements and those non-reoccurring physical expenditures. So it's not your typical kind of equipment or those reoccurring physical expenditures that you would look at as a community. It includes estimating, budgeting, and also prioritization of projects. So as part of this, we would look at city facilities, any publicly owned infrastructure, any lands that you own or any planned acquisitions. So say that you're expanding your wastewater treatment plant and need to acquire some new land. We would look at that as part of a capital improvement plan. And any of those larger equipment purchases. So any of those larger ticket items. So a new payloader, a new plow, anything like that. And kind of what's unique about a capital improvement plan is that we bring in
payloaders and plows.
What are you listening to? Yep. So kind of what's unique about a capital improvement plan is that we bring in a licensed engineer to assess those facilities and give you an itemized estimate for those. So that varies from a strategic plan where a community would look at that 5 to 10 year horizon, or even a comprehensive plan where we would have that 20-year outlook. So we are looking at that 5-year outlook for capital projects, knowing that communities' financial your kind of financing changes, or your projects and your priorities change as a community. So we see this as a static document, and that we really want to look at on an annual basis, knowing that your needs and priorities change as communities. And I'll turn it over to Justin next to continue the overview.
Perfect. Thank you, Danielle. And you just had to put that payloader in there. I mean, I think we're all trying to forget about all the snow we've been getting here lately and hoping we don't have to use those much more this year. So, but thanks for the introduction. And as you kind of hit on that, you know, some people may say, well, why would an EDO care about this program? You know, it's for the communities, it's community planning. But really, the big thing is this really helps the municipality strategically identify and plan for investments that will advance the development. You know, so that may be improving the water and wastewater treatment and distribution for that new housing development or industry that wants to move into town, but also planning for some of those quality of life improvements such as parks and recreation. The big thing is, you know, it also provides the municipality to respond quickly to new or unique funding opportunities. We've been seeing a lot of these recently. So by having those projects identified and already estimated, you know, you can get those applications in really quick, low effort, and hopefully be able to capitalize on that funding. And all in all, it really just puts the financial house of this community in order. Going in a little deeper, you know, into these CIP, you know, what is included. So Danielle hit on it a little bit. ISG engineers and architects will complete a comprehensive evaluation of all publicly owned infrastructure. So we'll have civil engineers, structural engineers, mechanical, electrical engineers, and architects, you know, cover the city from top to bottom, whether it's going on top of the city hall roof to looking at the streets. We want to try to capture all those improvements and maintenance items in a list. So like I said, you know, that's going to be your public facilities, your city hall, community center, fire station, public works building, your water system, wastewater system, storm sewer streets, park and recreation. We're going to get that evaluation, put all of our notes together. It's going to be a lot of notes, a lot of improvements and costs associated with those. We're also going to rank those, you know, as we all know, some improvements are immediate needs. Other ones, you know, we can push back that 4 or 5 years. We're also going to work very closely with the current community partners. So whether that's current city engineer or other, you know, people that need to be involved to review those existing studies and implement those into the plan. What we don't want to do is not include work that was already completed in the community. We want to respect that work that was already done and make sure we capture that. Turning over a little bit on the fundings. Once we get the projects identified, we're going to start looking at funding and how to make these projects into reality.
So here, once we see all these projects that we've identified and we have our wish list, it's great to have a wish list, but how do we make that wish list a reality? So this is just a highlight of some of these funding sources that we'll look at. It's not all inclusive, it's not exhaustive by any means, knowing that some funding sources may pop up or there may be additional grant opportunities out there for some of those quality of life enhancements. But we'll typically look at those general fund reserves, any debt that you can issue as a community. So that could be a general obligation bond. That can be any revenue bonds that would be associated with a utility. We'll check out any municipal sales tax funding that you have available, any private sector funding. So if you have any new industry that's coming into the community, how can we tie any improvements that we've identified and maybe do a public-private partnership to get some of those improvements realized. We'll check out any utilities that you have as a community. So if you have water, storm sewer, sanitary, even electric utilities. And then also special assessments, if that's something that you've used as a community, and then tax increment financing as well. So that's really kind of the entire toolbox that we'll be looking at. By all means, not exhaustive, but just kind of a snapshot that we'll really be analyzing and giving you an idea of where you stand as a community. So we're really being sustainable and financially savvy as we're planning out those improvements over the next 5 years.
Perfect. So now we kind of hit on every little phase, but put that all into one slide here. This will be the complete process. So that's step one, is that evaluation where we're jumping on the roofs, walking the streets, identifying all those improvements. We're going to take those into step two, where we put those in that project priority list. So that's where we are ranking our projects based on severity and want. You know, there's some of those projects that are very important to the community, so they're going to have a little bit of weight. We're going to take those, intertwine them with our budget. There's only so much we can get done every year. So we're going to space those projects out and really create that 5-year breakdown, which is going to go into that final plan. That final report is going to summarize all of our findings, background information, how we got to where we got, and put all those projects in that 5-year schedule. We'll also have a section for unallocated projects. There's going to be some projects that just don't fit into the 5-year plan for multitude of reasons, but we don't want to discount those. We want to have those kind of sitting there. Like we said, that funding, if a funding opportunity comes up, we'll slide those in. And then the final stage would just be the adoption and implementation. So that's where, it gets approved by council, and then the city can take away and use that as a planning tool for the next 5 years. And just to note, we anticipate the CIPs to take approximately 4 to 6 months to complete. That's our goal.
Yeah, great. So if I had to boil this down, ISG team, if I had to just make a quick statement about the CIP, this is an opportunity for a community to create a planning document that they can use over the next 5 years to prioritize their big projects and have an idea of what they're going to cost. And then what they've got then is essentially a plan for success in their community.
Absolutely. And adding that other element, Danielle will work on the funding. So not only will we have these projects, but how can we fund those and get those done?
Right. And so I want to make sure I say this again, so just so that we don't have any confusion out there, is this whole process, this grant application that communities will be able to put in an application for, it's for the planning only. This is not a funding opportunity right now to actually do the project, right? And so I just want to make sure that that's clear. Over the next 4 to 6 or 8, 10 months, it's the grant is to do the plan.
Yep.
Right.
And I'll just note one more thing, it really helps, convert a reactive community into a proactive community.
Yeah.
So a lot of these times we're always trying to fight these fires as these projects come up, these needs, water main breaks, or we need a new water tower, we need new wastewater system, and we need it now.
Yep.
This plan will look out 5 years. You should always know 5 years in advance of when these projects are coming. That way you have the money to do them.
Right.
As they come up.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about specifically what kind of money is on the table for communities. So what we're doing, we're taking part of our $1 million grant, and we're for bucket number 3, this capital improvement planning bucket, we're going to provide matching funds to communities to complete their capital improvement plan. And ISG will lead the community through that process. The community will have to chip in $15,000, and we will chip in, GOED will chip in $15,000, and that will pay for the capital improvement plan. So that's what's on the table for communities. And we're very excited to be able to pay for half of it, half of those plans. It's going to be a great tool for the communities that get chosen. So kind of what's next? Let's talk about that. So the application form is available for your review so that you can kind of prepare your application. It's out on our website, and you can see the link here. It'll be available tomorrow. Yeah. Sorry about that. I misspoke. My team is keeping me on the straight and narrow here. So the application will be available tomorrow for your review. Just go out to our website and you'll be able to get a copy and review all of the things that are needed. It's not a big application. We tried to make it very manageable. That will be available for you for a couple of weeks. And then in the meantime, we're going to have another webinar. This one is going to be focused on bucket number 1 and bucket number 2. So the statewide infrastructure plan and the selection of the 16 best economic development sites in the state. That one is really going to be geared more toward our economic development organizations across the state. I would not think that cities or city representatives would need to attend that one. This was the one for the city folks today. But we did want to throw it out there so that our economic development organizations, EDOs, could get that on their calendar. And you can see the date there, January 24th, 2 p.m. Central. And certainly our planning districts would be welcome to attend. Anybody would be welcome to attend, but the cities probably wouldn't need to attend because it's not going to pertain to their work necessarily. All right, and then the applications will be open for submission. You can submit your application starting on Wednesday, January 25th. So you'll have from tomorrow until the 25th to prepare your application, get it all ready, and then on the 25th, you can submit it. It'll be submitted on our website. You'll go to our website to submit that application. That's the only way we're gonna accept an application is through that process. And we're just trying to be very streamlined and very simple so that there's kind of one route and nobody gets confused. So that's really kind of an overview of the next steps. Oh yeah, thanks Brady. So I've got Brady over here chiming in with my reminders. So we're going to leave that application open until we have expended all of the funds. And what I mean by that is we have enough funding to do 16 capital improvement plans. We'll choose 16 communities. It's on a first come, first served basis. But if we end up getting a whole bunch of applications at the same time, we might have to score them and choose. And that's what we're anticipating. But we will leave the application open until we have chosen the 16 communities, and have expended all of those funds. I would recommend, though, that you get your application in as soon as you can, starting on the 25th. That would probably be a best practice. All right, so application requirements, then what's going to be required? There is a short application document where you've got to fill in a few questions, but it's really for communities of less than 5,000 in population. The reason we chose that is as you get to be a larger community, you generally have a little bit more funding that you have some discretion with. And those larger communities can probably do this on their own. We want to hit the smaller communities that maybe have struggled to find the funding for this. You also have to be a community that either does not have a current capital improvement plan, or if you have one, it has to be older than 4 years. If you've already created one and it's 2 years old or 3 years old, you should be using that document and updating it regularly. But if you don't have one, or you've got one that's old, then you can participate in this. You have to identify the funding source that you're going to use for that $15,000, whether that's city funding or some other source, but you've got to identify where that $15,000 is going to come from. And we would like you to document that as part of your application so that we know for sure that you can pay for this, pay for your share. We would ask that you have a letter of support from your economic development organization, unless you don't have one in your community. And we do have a few of those out there. Most of our communities have one. Because this is coming through an economic development federal agency and then the state agency, we do want the local economic developer in your community to be supportive of this project and to voice that with a letter of support. And then lastly on the list, we would like you to put together a short statement, 2-3 paragraphs, whatever you think appropriate. It doesn't have to be long, but stating why this opportunity to create a new capital improvement plan is important for your community. And specifically, you're going to want to address a little bit about the economic development piece. A CIP does cover more than economic development. It can cover a bunch of your city's capital needs, but we do want a little bit of a flavor in there for the impact on economic development. Okay, I'm going to click to the next slide. Yeah, it's our Q&A. So we actually got done early. So we've got plenty of time for questions and answers. So what I would say is Adam or Hannah or Lori or Brady, do we have any questions in the chat?
Yep, we have a couple started, but I would just encourage everybody, if you have more questions, please put them in the chat and we can go over them. I'll start. Andrew Neal just asked if communities can apply for funds from both of the buckets or just one or the other. So perhaps reviewing the funding process and how there's only funding for this project.
Right. All right. So at the beginning, we talked about the 3 buckets of work, the statewide infrastructure plan and choosing the 16 best economic development sites in the state. There is no funding available for those 2 things. We're going to work with ISG directly on those first 2 buckets. And so there is no opportunity to apply. There's no funding available. It's really more ISG and GOED working together to figure those 2 buckets out. The 3rd bucket, though, the capital improvement planning, that's what we're talking about today. Yes, there's funding available for that.
One other, excuse me,
go ahead,
one other
Lori.
question, one of my EDOs had is, can you fill out the application online or is it read only until submission date is open?
That's a good question. The question is, can you fill it out online?
It's
Or do you-
read only until submission.
Yeah. So that document will be read only so that you can prepare everything. But then once we get to the 25th, it will not be read only and you'll be able to enter your information and have attachments.
Maybe just for a point of clarification, so you can actually download that and go through to fill it out, but the submit button will not be live.
Okay,
So
thank you.
just remember that you could fill it out, but you're going to have to re-enter it and fill it out on the 25th when the submit button at the bottom becomes live.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Hannah.
Yep. A couple other questions, just asking for us to send some information about the recording and links to how we're marketing this project. We can definitely send those out afterwards, once we get that available for download.
Yeah.
Once a community has been approved, how soon will the evaluation process begin with ISG?
That's a good question. So I think there's a 2-part answer to that. The first part is we expect it's going to take a couple of weeks after the 25th to get the applications in and for us to review them and make sure they're complete. And then if we do have to kind of score them, then it'll take us a little bit of time to choose the top 16 communities. It's first come, first served, but if we get a whole boatload of them all together, we're just going to go in and score them. We're going to count that as everybody got them in together. So I'm expecting a couple of weeks for us to get through that process. It could be more, it could be less. So no firm answer there, kind of a fuzzy answer. But we want to get right on this. We do want to move as fast as we can. Then to get ISG engaged, I'm going to let Justin and the ISG team address that.
Yeah, so really we're looking at trying to complete all 16 of these within a year, you know. Perfect scenario would be all completed by the end of the 2023 fiscal year. That way these communities can start using this as a planning document for the next year. But once we get all 16 in, you know, we're going to evaluate them geographically, kind of lump them together and get a work plan put together, and space those out where we got, you know, essentially about 4 communities at a time at step 1, and then step 2, step 3, running these all at different processes just to make sure we're meeting every community's needs. You know, what we don't want to do is jump in headfirst on all 16 and not be able to effectively reach all of our communities. So there will be a staged approach to those, but once we get all of our communities selected, we'll have kickoff meeting and then go over that with everybody. So
Yeah, great. And I think that's important to note. You know, ISG is a great firm, but we do need to give them a little flexibility so that we just don't throw all 16 at them at one time, right? So we'll work with all of the communities and visit with all of you. I mean, this is gonna be a very open process. And we'll figure out, ISG will take a stab at, okay, here's the 4 we'd like to start with. And you guys will know that if you've been awarded one of these, you'll know it. And when you need to be very active at working with ISG on that. So, but they'll be spaced out, throughout the next year. Other questions?
Oh, and Joe, in regards to I think Ted had a question about the social media link. So on the website, we do have those overviews. They're already out there of the whole program. And then the CIP portion with qualifications. And then, of course, we'll get the recording and then the slide deck posted out there as soon as possible.
Yeah, very good. Good for pointing that out, Adam. Appreciate it. Our website is sdgoed.com. And then you should be able to navigate, go to the community partners page and then the infrastructure first project, and you'll be able to see the overviews and the information that's available there.
There's also another question on here that said, can you guys explain how having a 5-year capital improvement plan could help a community obtain grants or for development projects?
That's a great question. So I'll take a stab and then chime in if I miss something.
Yeah.
Okay. Or just step on me if I'm completely messing it up. All right. So as with anything in life, having a plan is the first step in being successful, right? You got to have a plan or you're planning to fail. So once you have a plan of all of your capital projects, whether it's improving a road or buying a payloader or fixing the city swimming pool or putting in a new bathhouse at the park or putting up a new water tower, first you've got to develop the list of all of those projects and then dive into what it's going to cost, what's a priority, right? What's at the top, what's the first priority, et cetera. Develop an understanding of the costs, develop an understanding of how it can be funded, right? Where you're going to get the funds. And so as an example, let's just maybe throw out an example. Let's say that you have identified that you need to put in a new housing development. And there's going to be a bunch of street work and sewer and water associated with that. And that's high on your list of priorities. That's coming. It's going to be coming in year 2, let's say. And you kind of know what it's going to cost. It's going to be, I'm going to just throw a figure out there, some made up number. It's going to be $5 million. Okay, where do we get the $5 million? Now you start to look at where are there funding opportunities available. Maybe there is funding from a state source. Maybe South Dakota Housing Development Authority maybe has some funding available, or maybe there's a federal grant that's available, or maybe you decide, look, we can use a tax increment financing district to do this, and maybe we fund it ourselves, as a city. That's what we do. And that's for the city to kind of step through that process and figure out, okay, how are we going to fund these things? What are we going to apply for? But if you don't have a plan to start with, you're never going to get to the point where you actually can apply for something in a logical method and have any chance of success.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit it very well. It's one of those things, as we look at that 5-year plan and, as these funding opportunities come out, it might not be something that we had in mind, but hey, there's a press release on this funding. Let's look at our 5-year plan and see what project we can tackle with that. Maybe that's project year 5, but if we can get all the funding to pay for that now, let's bring that in right now. We have a plan in place. We have it estimated. Most of these grant applications require a project scope and an estimated cost on it. But we already got 2 things crossed off the list.
Right. You're really setting yourself up to move quicker in the end. It's going to take you a few months to put your capital improvement plan together, but once it's there, and if you use it as a document that you refer to regularly, you're putting yourself in a position to be very nimble and quick in applying for funds or finding funds and moving forward faster.
Just one thing to add to for that, When you guys are looking at your plan, one of the reasons why we had you guys work with your economic development organization is they also have their strategic goals in a plan for what they're looking at for your community. So if economic development isn't working with the city and they're maybe planning a business park expansion, or you need a new elevator in your community, they're the ones who could also provide you insight into what could potentially be coming to your community so that you're prepared versus just getting a very quick response of, oh my gosh, we need a 12-inch water line here instead of a 6-inch water line, you know, those types of things. So that's part of the reason why we thought it would be very important to work with your economic development organization to not only match up your city's goals, but also plan with your economic development organization.
Great point, Hannah.
We don't have any more questions right now. Is there any other comments or things that we could maybe help clarify?
While they're typing those in, I'll throw in one thing while people are thinking. I think it's important to note that, you know, the work, if your community is selected for one of these plans to do a capital improvement plan, ISG is going to work with the local stakeholders. It's going to be the mayor, the finance officer, the city council, the economic development organization, and other stakeholders that the community identifies. GOED, our role in this is really to help to select the 16 communities. But then we step back a little bit and we're not going to tell you what to do. All right, I want to be clear about that. This is your plan working, and ISG is going to help you through that process, but it's your plan. And so you're not going to have a bunch of people telling you what to do. ISG is going to advise you on some things they think are important, certainly using their expertise, you know, and they might say things like, hey, you know, your water lines are, you know, too old, you need to replace them. You know, they're going to use their expertise to advise you, but it's your plan. And we want it to be your plan so that you use it. All right, I'll quit talking. I can take a 1-minute statement and make it into 10 minutes pretty easy. Hannah, was there anything else that came in?
Nope, just some thanks for great information. The one thing that you just triggered me though to remember is, can you talk a little about if a community already has a capital improvement plan and it's maybe with an engineering firm that is not ISG, and kind of who owns that plan and how can they share that?
Yeah, so you may have engineering, you all have engineering firms that you're working with now, whether it's ISG or some other firm. And you might have capital improvement plans, an old one, you might have water and sewer plans that you've got in place, and drawings and other documents that the engineering firm may have developed. It's important to note that the city owns all of those documents. The city has paid for them. Their engineering firm has pulled together the information and provided it, but the city owns those documents. And so you can use them as a city for any purpose that you want. You've paid for them, you own them, they're yours. Now, if you don't have a copy, all you have to do is ask to get a copy. And the firm that you have engaged previously will provide it. And that's fine. I think it's just good to note that. Anything else to add, Justin?
No, I think that's perfect. And I'll just know it, you know, we work with other engineering firms all the time.
Yep.
You know, it's pretty standard practice. It's good note that it is the city's documents, just like when we're done with this document, you know, we'll turn it over to you guys and it's yours.
Yep, that's right.
So
Great, good. We did have another
One more
question
come in.
Fire away.
It is, if we are a very small community, will it still be the $15,000?
Yes. The answer is yes. That is the threshold. 15,000. That's what you got to come up with, no matter what your size is. Now, we certainly recognize that some very small communities, that's a big ask. So what I would recommend is if you think you're going to struggle with that, or it's going to be tough for you, talk to your partner relations representative, Adam, Hannah, and Lori, and we're going to give their contact information in just a moment here. But also, you know, use other sources. Do you have a community, what am I trying to say? South Dakota Community Foundation. Do you have a community foundation that could help provide some funding? Talk to your planning district to see if they know of opportunities where you can find funds. Talk to all of us. We're here to help you brainstorm so that you can find that $15,000. We're not going to pay it for you. You've got to go find it, but we'll help you brainstorm, certainly.
Joe, I'd also like to add on that one, from the community standpoint, ISG is willing to work with those teams and do a phased payment. So if there's something that, you know, is $2,000 a month, that's more palatable for each of your smaller communities as we go through, the ask would be in that upfront application process that we understand there is a source of funding there that's present available. But we are happy to phase that out from the billing perspective as we go through the journey with you guys and try to support you in the best way possible.
Great. Thanks, Tiara.
Mhm.
God, it almost feels like we know what we're doing when we're answering all these questions. Okay, with that, I don't want to take up extra time. We've been at it about 45 minutes here. I'm going to click to the next slide. There we go. So again, Adam, Hannah, and Lori are your partner relations reps. If you don't know which one, you know, if you're kind of on the border, let's say between west and northeast, doesn't matter who you call, we'll get you squared away and to the right person. Just call one of us and we'll get that going. You can see their contact info here. I'm going to leave this up just for a moment. So if you have to write down a phone number or an email, you can do that. And we'll make these slides available on the website, I think, probably. That'd be great. Yeah, I think we should. That way the slides are out there. Again, our website address. And if you don't know where to go, just go to sdgoed.com and navigate. I go to the bottom of the page and we've got a site map. And that's where I go because I can't keep it straight in my head how to navigate. So you can do that. And lastly, again, we're very excited for this opportunity. We hope your community is excited for this opportunity. Let's be sure to stay communicating over the next couple of weeks. And applications will be open for submission on the 25th. I think that's it. Happy New Year, everybody. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye. Have a good one.